Hi everyone. This is Finance Meets Real Estate. We meet every Tuesday, usually on Tuesday, 6:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 today. And we have an amazing guest here, actually. So it's Nick Wav. So he's a syndicator, multifamily syndicator and marketer. He's based out in Dallas, Texas. He's going to discuss social media marketing strategies for each tier of multifamily investors, basically. And sorry, just one moment. So Nick is the director of acquisitions at Hazel Equity, and he is a marketing specialist as well. And he has 456 total units under management. So he has experience in working with the best ever real estate brand, Think Multifamily, Good Egg Investments, and much more. And he has bachelor's in finance and marketing from the University of North Texas in Denton, Texas. And he's also focused on building a multifamily investment company, the multifamily investment company of Hazel Equity, by purchasing A and B class value add properties in Texas and educating multifamily operators on marketing and social media. So that's really great there. It's an amazing resume. Like, I find that I think most people will find that marketing is one of the most important skills in any business, and in real estate, no exception as well. So I'm very curious to hear what you have to say here today. We're doing an open format just for everyone. We're doing an open format with Q&A. So feel free to ask any questions, or if you're feeling shy, put them on the chat, and I'm gonna be relating my questions as well. So yeah, with that, Nick, the stage is yours.
Yeah, I appreciate the great intro, and really happy to be here trying to provide as much knowledge and advice as I can. I love to answer questions the best, just to see the specific things that people would like to know about or talk about inside of marketing or inside of multifamily. But I really appreciate you having me on here. So thanks.
No, it's really a pleasure. And so do you want to tell us a little bit about how you started first in multifamily? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the advantage of being out here in Dallas, Texas. So there's a lot of people inside of the commercial real estate and multifamily industry that are in Texas or in Dallas and Houston and everything like that. So whenever I was in college and getting my degree in finance, I was networking around and talking with people inside real estate, residential and commercial and multifamily. And that's where I came across a lot of these larger syndication groups. That kind of started the little seed of multifamily real estate and syndications, and that kind of idea, paired with all the real estate knowledge with Grant Cardone that he was putting out back in the day. And that kind of piqued my interest. So whenever I kept on networking and talking with brokers and trying to look at deals and use my finance background that I was working on to underwrite deals and understand the entire process, I fell in love with the syndication side with multifamily. And then as a way to zag myself as a younger guy, I doubled down on the marketing side as well, just to kind of really create or just bring in a different experience than most people were used to, since so many people inside this business are 30, 40 plus. And so I started working with larger syndication groups with marketing so that I could gain a lot of experience with multifamily and how they were investing in deals, how they were finding deals and underwriting, etc. And that kind of led me to go down the marketing hole and then also start doing deals on my own with that kind of track record knowledge. So that's kind of where it started. And then now I'm more doubling down on the actual acquisitions and really trying to explode the deal flow and everything like that, but also just trying to really build up the brand alongside that, because that's what I really believe in, is trying to really build up a group or that brand associated with your real estate business, because it's so much stronger than just doing one-off deals with 10 people, is how I see it. So that's kind of my background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting, actually, because so you mentioned you started working with them in sort of like on the marketing side, but was that in a consulting capacity, or were you capital raising essentially for those deals?
It was a little bit of both, but I was doing, in the beginning, I was just doing it for free, essentially, especially with larger groups. I was just trying to leverage, since I was, 18 and 19 at the time, I didn't have anything to provide besides, the kind of expertise in marketing that I could give them. And that was really just more testing and understanding, because I didn't understand the model in the beginning. So it was helping them raise capital for deals, but I wasn't getting any type of compensation from those deals in the beginning. It wasn't until later on, until I started really understanding the type of compensation I could get directly from that type of model. But essentially, it was helping create events, social media, email campaigns, website design, stuff like that, that really creates a great professional presence online.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, again, like, just let's say I've attempted like my share of marketing, let's say, and so what is your focus? Like, is it more like SEO, like search engine optimization? Is it like all the different like social media engagement strategies? Is it kind of building funnels and automation? Like, what are like some of your key strengths there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say if I would narrow it down, I think I've been focusing a lot on building up exposure. So whenever you say that, you would kind of talk about top of funnel information. So you're trying to get your brand and your company out there as many people as you can on there, whether that be through advertising and SEO, in a sense, or you're really trying to focus on a certain aspect of social media where you can try to gain as many views or try to get as much eyeballs pretty much on everything centered around your brand, is where there's a lot of focus into. And then I'm also very centered around nurture and emails and campaigns, and actually utilizing the marketing process to raise capital better for deals. So instead of just emailing people whenever you have a deal out there, you're trying to email them maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, just to make sure that you keep that touch point going and people don't forget about you and what you're trying to do and why you're different. With emails and social media specifically. So I think it kind of narrows down into social media content and email drip campaigns is a lot of where I put focus into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you use, on the email campaign, so is it going to be just kind of like your list that you nurture, or do you go out there and do further like outreach, like, to new, like trying to expand the email list in a more, there's kind of these more aggressive strategies of, collecting like all these emails data and like trying to essentially, bring in more people on your genuine email list, let's say.
I think you should always, be looking to add people into your list, whether that's through your website and your web design or through direct outreach. I never recommend people to try to cold email a lot of people. That doesn't work well, especially when you're trying to talk with people and use their money inside of deals, and there needs to be a layer of trust there. So a lot of times in the beginning, I discourage people from paying for advertising just to try to essentially build up their list of capital raising, because they'll, for one, spend a lot of money and not get any engagement or any conversion from that, because nobody's going to trust somebody straight from a Facebook ad or a Google ad. They may not even optimize those correctly and things like that. But whenever you're trying to build up your list, the fastest things that you can do is your direct connections that you have on social media currently. So that's through Facebook connections and LinkedIn. You can actually download your entire LinkedIn list through the actual LinkedIn platform, emails and phone numbers and all. And those are people you're already connected with. You have an immediate connection email that you can send out through them. Hey, I got your email from LinkedIn. I see you're in real estate. Let's chat about what we're doing, kind of thing.
Let me hold you to that. Sorry. So when you say you can download, because like my experience is there's sort of these limitations, like you can download like 100 per day or something like that as far as your LinkedIn connection goes, right? There's a limit of how many profiles you can either view or sort of export, and that's, I feel like what different tools do there. They're kind of capped at like 100. They kind of have a limited time, limited count that they can extract per day or week and so forth.
I've never come across a point like that. I think a few weeks ago, I was telling somebody exactly how to do this, and they didn't have issues downloading the entire list. The only limitation that you'll have is actually on the data that people have online. So if somebody doesn't have their email or have their phone number, then you won't get that. But I mean, that's just how it is. But after this meeting, I'll send you, Stefan, a link to where to do that on LinkedIn, because it's
Oh,
through the actual LinkedIn platform, and it's fairly simple, and you can download it into Excel. And then I just weed out everybody that wouldn't fit the kind of format or that I would not to connect with, and then just you can easily put that into whatever CRM you want to go towards. But
okay.
I would have either a drip campaign in place whenever you're going to try to reach out to people pretty new, or some sort of process that you have in place to reach out to that many people. Because let's say you get 500 people from that, you want to make sure that you can capture and build a relationship with as many as you can, kind of thing. So
Got it. Got it. And so if you want to talk to us a little bit on the investment side, let's say, since you're an investor as well. So what are, let's say, what are your personal investment criteria? Like, what do you look for in a deal? Like, what do you want to invest in yourself as a, call it a private investor, and then as a syndicator? So is it the same criteria, or is it criteria that you use? Is it different criteria for that?
that's a great question. I would say I'm definitely doubling down on one specific type of asset. So I think that if, as far as personally and inside the business, it would be the same. And it's that exact class A and class B. So you're talking about early 2000s down to the late 80s, kind of inside of the Texas Triangle, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. Maybe even outside a little bit of some of these metros, maybe on the north side of Dallas or the north side of Houston, and some of these great areas. If people are familiar with Houston, we're looking at a lot of deals inside of Conroe. Not only is it advantageous inside of taxes, but also competition inside of Texas is super high. So looking at some of these tertiary markets inside of DFW are great areas to take a look in. But looking for a lot of value add, trying to make sure that we're getting a good purchase price on these deals, just because of where the market's at and where interest rates are going. You really got to make sure that your underwriting is really on point, and you have a good relationship with the lender whenever you're underwriting a lot of this stuff. So I think our criteria really comes down to solid deals, solid price with a solid business plan. That's kind of the basis down into it, but it's pretty typical, I think, of a lot of other syndicators.
But it's still, so what made you kind of focus on class A and B? Like, I know like people have different reasons. I can just give my perspective. For example, sometimes I've heard like all kinds of narratives from, well, the lower cap rate kind of giving you like a bigger value, like dollar value for the dollar NY that you realize and so forth, which I feel there's a little bit of a logical fallacy there. But other than that, it's just like all the other, let's say, there's a bigger rent upside in theory, in terms of your renter demographic is able to, the gap versus the rent they're paying and what they can afford is generally higher. I've looked at charts like that in the A class and B and so forth. I mean, relative to the C and D. So it's, there's like different justification. Just you want a better asset, you want to be in a kind of more like core plus strategy, or you still mentioned that.
Not directly. Yeah, I think value add, the perfect type of scenario is a late 90s deal that hasn't been touched at all, 100% interiors that can be updated. I think that's a perfect asset, not only just more recession proof, but also I think that the kind of deal that you purchase compared to, let's just say, a C deal, you would pay maybe a $20,000 or $30,000 a unit difference on there and get such a better asset, maybe even inside of a better location a lot of times. And then that delta on your purchase cap is so small between a class B and a class C and a class B nowadays, that in my opinion, just how I see it, I think it's more worth it to go to some of these better asset types, especially since things are getting more expensive, and maybe we'll be looking at longer term holds than something that will have a much better advantage on the 5 and 7 and 10 year holds would be newer assets, in my opinion, at least. And this is what I'm talking about inside of Texas and how we look at deals and things like that.
So let's say, so the time zero kind of cap rates, they're really close, like they're like super, in the current market. Yeah. And so that justifies it. But then what about the value add kind of like the improvement potential? Like, have you seen some better value add sometimes for an A class compared to even a C class and so forth? Because I know like that could occur in some cases.
Well, everything's variable, and so there's probably cases for both, I think. But the way that I've been seeing, and whenever we're not just looking, of course, inside of the value add for interiors, but also on things that we can add with other income items. People that are willing to pay more for, let's say, increase heavily on the pet income, or you're trying to add private yards or putting in tech packages and things like that, you wouldn't be able to put inside of C-class properties because they're already paying, so X amount or $20, $30, and you just keep adding on fee after fee. It's just not advantageous in those properties. And so I think that there's a lot of other income potential inside of newer properties that we can put in there, and the ability to be creative with that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it pays more like being creative in AQuas, right? There isn't much value in the other ones. And so, okay, so a question we have on the chat from Sonia. So what are your thoughts of trying to brand real estate and financial services together, like life insurance and some retirement solutions? I would like to gain clients for my financial services as well as gain investors for real estate opportunities.
That's a great question. Definitely, I guess whenever you're trying to talk with both clientele, it would be centered around, I guess, the personal brand side, if that's what they're asking too. And it's great to have your personal brand, or let's say we're talking about social media. You have a Instagram account, let's say, for your company, and then your own personal Instagram account. And on the personal side, you can post about many different things, how you're investing inside of real estate, how you do certain financial services. There's a lot of people inside of multifamily that do have a full-time job and also invest in multifamily, whether that's passive or on the active side. And you can actually use that to your advantage, because let's say if you're inside of financial services already, then that's the experience that you already have that you could bring into multifamily, and you try to make that kind of shine outlight inside of your brand, I guess, and how you could, I can't think of something right now, but how that is an advantage for you and why people should connect with you versus somebody else is how I would use that kind of advantage, which is why, like, I try to talk with people about marketing, about certain things, because that's my zag. If you've read that, such a great book, and you try to show people like what your advantage is to invest with you or to connect with you on a relationship basis. If that answers your question, I think. But
so your personal brand is centered around marketing, multifamily intersection, kind of, right? So your
it's personal. It's your personality. It's authenticity.
Yeah.
And it humanizes the kind of idea and why people will connect with you. They don't want to connect with some perfect persona that you have. They want to connect with the person that you are out there. You invest in real estate. Maybe you're into a lot of fitness, and people connect. That's why you go play golf with somebody that you want to invest with, because they want to get to know you as a person and an investor on the multifamily side. That's where you build that trust a lot of times, and it's over time too. It's not overnight.
Yeah, that's great feedback actually there. And so yes, another question is, what is a good app or website to build that drip campaign? MailChimp, other?
Yeah. MailChimp is a great one. ConvertKit is also another great app in there. There's ActiveCampaign, I would say, in my opinion, is probably one of the best ones as far as automations and multiple different things that you're trying to create out. And I think it's the best for the price point too. With MailChimp, I don't think it's a bad thing to start out with, but whenever you start doing more extensive things and automate multiple platforms, let's say you want to have an automation from your website and an automation from Facebook or from your advertising and everything, then you start to become limited, I think, with MailChimp. So you can always use both. That's why I always tell people to maybe use a free side of MailChimp and then a paid version of ActiveCampaign for certain things. But if you don't have a current CRM, then MailChimp is a great place to start, because it's very simple and you can do simple things. But then upgrade into ActiveCampaign, I would say, is your best bet as far as for this kind of thing with emails and multifamily, and trying to put out, let's just say, 5 emails over the course of a week and a half or so.
Yeah, I think that's the answer that most people in the industry give, right? As far as
it's a true answer. I think if you go deep down the rabbit hole of ActiveCampaign, it's your best bet. And so there's a reason a lot of people use it. And I think that a great person that posts a lot about ActiveCampaign and a multifamily is Michael Blanc, who's also, I think, out here in Dallas, and he has a lot of good info on that too.
Yeah, I feel he's a kind of a marketing guru, right? I feel
He
that's
is, yeah,
biggest strength,
good
really.
and bad. Yeah.
More, maybe more so than real estate in a way.
Yeah,
Like he's really good at it. And so,
right.
yeah, so another question, like for raising capital, what are your takes on utilizing funnels that are a bit more sales versus a website that is more informational, like a private equity firm website?
I am, these are all just my opinions. And I think inside of the industry, trying to put out something that's more salesy, I think is a decent amount of turnoff for people. I mean, we're talking about raising $50, $100, $200,000. And if you're looking at top of funnel items, maybe trying to teach something or try to do webinars like these, I don't think that those sales websites are bad, but if you're talking about raising capital for specific deals, I think there should be a layer of professionalism there that's either tied to your company brand or your company website that's limited. And you want to have that element where if somebody's going to invest in your deals, that they feel special, I guess. So whenever you're going towards that website, you don't want to make it seem like a salesy thing where you need them to invest with you or you need them to do X, Y, and Z and that kind of thing. But as far as using top of funnel items, those are all top of funnel things. So you're talking about lead capturing, but not anything that's going directly towards what you're trying to get your audience to convert into, because they haven't had that layer of trust built yet with you. So they won't invest with you, or a very, very, very small percentage will. So I think that you should have different websites and different landing pages for different things. So you can have a top of funnel line item. Let's say that you have an ebook or a spreadsheet or something that you can offer up to your audience. That's a top of funnel line item that can have its own landing page connected to your website. And then you have a different part of your website, let's say, that has this type of information. So you're posting a video every week, or you're doing some type of webinar every week or 2 weeks. You have that information in there. People can either download or look at things, and you can capture their information that way from that. And then there's obviously a separate section that is a serious area that either is like FAQ that answers questions about actual investing, or you're constantly trying to convert people into whatever next process it is. If that's you're trying to capture their information or really get into that call, is what I see a lot of people doing. They try to schedule out a call with the investor relations or talk with them specifically. But you should definitely map out. And what I tell a lot of people do is, if you have like a large whiteboard or use your pen and paper and just map out, your journey, your investor journey, and where you see them go, because somebody could start see your social media content, and then they could go in and download your ebook, and then they go and schedule a call with you, and then maybe they're on the private email list where you send out deals or something like that. And you just kind of start there and you work backwards from that, and understand that process, because if you understand them, then there won't be any missteps, or they won't want to not invest with you for any reason, because people are constantly looking to find red flags inside of your business or find ways to discredit you. And so you don't want to give them any reasons to kind of do that. And that's a true statement, especially inside of this business too. There's so many options. So you don't want to give people a reason to not trust you.
Yeah, so that's quite interesting. So you said like people are looking to kind of find like those that's kind of the psychology there, right? To find like,
absolutely,
that something is, maybe something is not perfectly honest or something like that. So, so do you want to expand on that a little bit? Like how is like
I can. So like, let's say that you go to a multifamily investor's website, and you're going through the website, and in big text you see a typo. I mean, what do you immediately think? Oh, that's weird. You automatically understand, and on a subliminal level, it's subconsciously you won't trust them anymore, and it'll be very hard to build back up that kind of respect inside of that. Even if the company is larger, there's still going to be a subconscious factor in there that you won't be able to get over. So with myself and my brand, and what I tell a lot of people too, is that you should always strive to create a professional online presence, because more times than not, that's what people will see first. And then that's also what they'll look back into, especially whenever you have a deal that comes out. They're looking, up and down at your deals, at your numbers, at your projections and things. And, simple things like that could, make people say no. And what I tell a lot of people is that you want to make the entire process as frictionless as possible. So you want to make it super easy and super simple to see. So you go to your website, let's say, and there's a very easily viewable button that says, if you're ready to invest, click right here. And that makes things simple and people know where to go for their next step when they're ready or when they want to do something. So just stuff like that, I think comes to mind.
Mm. So do you see, let's say, do you see anyone potentially succeeding in marketing, let's say in the multifamily industry, if they don't have a website? I almost feel like it's the equivalent of being homeless in the online marketing field. I almost, you see that possible? I feel like it's almost
it's a possibility.
There.
And it's exactly a possibility, especially maybe whenever you're trying to start out. People will ponder the question, do I have to have a website when I start out? Or some people will have everything ready on the marketing side and have no deals. There's almost the opposite spectrum. So I don't know if I would say that one is better than the other. Actually, if I would say one's better than the other, it's better to have deals and no marketing in place, because you can always leverage that and start working on your marketing as you're doing deals.
I agree.
But if in this type of presence, especially like whenever I was talking with a lot of clients through COVID, you won't talk to very many people in person. And let's say something like that happens again, or something like this happens. Everything about your brand, about your company is all online. Everybody's looking online. They're going through social media. They're looking at you. They're looking at your LinkedIn. They're looking at things that you do. So it is so simple, and I don't want to say cheap to get a website done, but it's enough to pay somebody to get a website done within a week. I think that everybody should have a website, whether that's something simple or just something that they can use to convert an audience or send somebody to for instant credibility is needed, nowadays, especially since there's so many people in multifamily, and maybe you talk with somebody and they don't have a website, they can move on to somebody else or something like that. Just how the days are now, you can survive without a website, but you'll increase your chances heavily with one, I guess, is the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt that people do, like to your point, to your credibility point, I felt that people do, on one side, yes, you can operate without one, but you just don't have this kind of anchor point for people to kind of find your online identity, and kind of, they feel like this is you, like they want to go to an actual website and kind of identify, and like it gives credibility. And if you don't have it, then they discredit you for sure. So that's kind of what I've seen. At least I had a phone call from a company like last week, and so they sounded like pretty credible on the phone. And okay, so where do I go, how do I see your information on your website? And it turns out they don't have a website. So that's kind of instantly a turn off. So right. I mean, again, like that's not even the real. It's another question if you have a website and that website has no SEO, which I feel is the case for most people in the real estate industry, has no SEO really done, right? Not well done, right? And so is it really a website? Well, that's kind of like a page that's just displaying your, kind of like a presentation page, but it's, in my mind, not even a real marketing tool. And
agreed. Yeah, agreed.
But even that gives you credibility. And so that's been kind of my experience. I don't know, it's a layman, marketing kind of layman in that sense, what I have found.
Well,
so yeah.
There's so many copy paste websites out there. And that's maybe because there's a lot of people that will pay to get websites done. But if you understand the kind of web design on the top level, or study as many people in multifamily that have a large presence as you can, you'll see that on their website, it's not like definitional. It's not, people aren't showing a multifamily investment firm up there, like somebody like Michael Blanc.
True.
On his homepage, he won't put, Michael Blanc multifamily investment firm, or what is it, Nighthawk Equity. He'll advertise the benefit, financial freedom, or things that people will get by investing with him. And that's what I don't see in a lot of websites. They'll just show what they are and not what they can provide to people, which is very important. in a sense, because somebody will go on your website and you want to tie that emotional factor, because that's really where a lot of people will make decisions from. They don't want to go to your website and just see another multifamily investment firm, our criteria, blah, 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 blah. That's just simple on everything else. So, why are you different from that? And how can you provide people better value than somebody else? It's kind of the thing.
So do you see some platforms now? I know it's like the whole package of like building your personal brand online, but let's say, do you see certain platforms that at the current time are perhaps peaking or having like a higher return on effort compared to others, and perhaps others like kind of pretty dried up? Let's say if we look at YouTube versus TikTok, perhaps, or maybe even like within social media and so forth. Like, what are your observations there? Like, or that's it. Do you feel podcasts are getting a little bit oversaturated, and then maybe that's another?
Well, there's two sides to a podcast. There's the people who make the podcast and being a guest on there. So you can either create a stage or you can speak on somebody's stage. It's kind of how I see it. So I don't think that podcasts are dead by any means. It's just weeded out, just like, natural selection moves. Everybody that continues to create podcasts will grow, and people who stop creating podcasts will die. So I think that you don't need to have a podcast, or something like this, that you can go on so many podcasts and so many webinars and do X amount of speaking gigs by advertising the reason that you should go on there. I can talk about marketing and I can go on so many different things. Somebody else can talk about certain financial services and why that can be tied back to multifamily, and just give your zag to people and go from there. But as far as social media specifically and trying to follow the tracks, I would screw TikTok. I mean, with our type of audience and what we're trying to do, not worth the time and effort that you put into it. It's better that you use short form videos with Instagram Reels, which may seem, I don't know how many people know about Instagram Reels that much, but it's essentially the same thing, but on Instagram. But why it's better is because Instagram is pushing their Reels reach 10 times more than TikTok, than their regular post. So by posting videos, even if you have 500 followers on Instagram, you'll get at least 1,000 views on your Instagram Reels, which is twice your following, which is unheard of, and that's a low type view. So video content, of course, people probably heard that all the time, is the best route to go down, whether that's on YouTube. Post directly on your website is great also. And then also just going on podcasts and having those linked inside your website maybe, or just cutting videos. Let's say I can cut a 20-second video from this webinar and use that as a piece of content. I mean, that kills two birds in one stone. You go in a 40-minute talk, maybe you pay a VA or somebody to cut down 10 different clips, and then you have 10 different content that you could use, I guess. But as far as social media platforms, I think I went off on a tangent a little, but Instagram Reels is a great way to post. So I would kind of use that, and then also post personal things. People like to see faces and smiles and happiness inside of posting. That's true. It's psychology. And then also LinkedIn. I mean, people push that all day and all night. But I think it's the wrong question to think about, because it's not like, where should I post? It's how, I guess, you should think about posting, because your success won't come from one post or from one platform that you utilize. It'll come from consistently posting on one platform for a long time. So instead of trying to murder yourself and post, think about trying to gain 1,000 followers in the next month or so, and trying to post 5 times a week. Just tell yourself to post one good piece of content on one platform 1 time a week for 3 months, and just see where you go. Because I think that any type of, let's say, experiment that you do, you want to use Instagram or utilize Instagram, you should look at a subset of 2 to 3 months time, and then look back on results and conversions and things. Because anything below that is variable. It could be on time frame. It could be on any different kinds of variables that come into play. So just try to double down on one platform that you can understand and research. There's free tools and there's free courses that you can learn out there on Instagram or on LinkedIn, and just double down on one platform with certain types of content and just see where it goes from that kind of idea. It's kind of what I
Yeah.
tell people. But
that makes a lot of sense. And so what are actually some courses, like, are there some courses you can recommend for our audience on that? Like you mentioned, like specific ones, like, or by their author or something like that?
Yeah. I can send you some after this that I've done, because I can't think of ones that I've taken off the top of my head, but course websites like Udemy and Skillshare, you could easily search Instagram and LinkedIn or whatever you want to learn, even just social media marketing in general. If you want to grasp a general concept, then I would start there. But if you want to go down the rabbit hole on a certain platform, then look at at Instagram. And with those websites specifically, make sure there's a lot of reviews on there, or a lot of people have gone through it, and then it'll be worth it. Then if there's any readers out there too, there's a book that's called 1 Million Followers. I thought I had it here. There's a book that's called here it is. It looks like this. It's 1 Million Followers by Brendan Kane. Definitely a book that I would recommend, because he talks a lot about A/B testing and posting out content and how to really gain people's trust and authenticity very quickly with social media. So that would be another learning tool that I would look at too.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Thanks for the book suggestion as well. And yes, another question that we have on the chat. So Chris is asking, marketing seems to encapsulate so many things: videos, websites, SEO, drip campaigns, etc. It's easy to get overwhelmed and maybe not do anything. So if you could build out a simple step-by-step process to build on from beginner to expert level, what would you advise to not get overwhelmed?
That's a great question, and it's very true. And the first thing is to grasp that Rome isn't built overnight. So your entire marketing strategy won't be built overnight, and it shouldn't be, because the way to go about it is that your marketing strategy and your entire brand is constantly changing. So the website that I create today will be completely different next year. So that's one thing that I've definitely had a hard time grasping too, because I struggle with being a perfectionist as well. So I want everything to be perfect whenever I post out there. But once you start posting content and starting to realize that almost perfect is much better than perfect, because you can always adjust, and there's always going to be somebody that hates it or somebody that loves it, but there's never going to be a perfect thing that you'll be able to put out there. So from the start, I would say that the most important thing is the website, because that's going to be your hub. You know, from social media, you'll send people to your website. Whenever you talk with somebody on a webinar, you'll send people to your email and to your website. So you would build your website first, and then I would have one way that you can convert people on your website. So whether that's through trying to convert people directly inside of an investor questionnaire, if you have a calendar set up that can be put inside of your website, or a simple thing of a source, an ebook, something that people can download that's free, that you can grab their information from. So that's the first thing I would say is the priority. And if you want to go a layer after that, then I would set up at least 2 emails that'll be automatically sent after somebody schedules a call with you or downloads your ebook or whatever free resource you have, or something along those lines. That's, 2 emails at least. The first one that gives them the item, says thank you, and then that's it. Something very simple. You don't want them to read everything, because they won't. They're just there for the free thing. And then you could send another email after that, maybe a day or 2, that'll say, hey, I hope you like the free thing. If you didn't download it, then here it is again. And then here's a little information on us and why we're different. Simple enough. And, if you want to learn more, then schedule a call with us, or whatever you want to have your next step as. So I think that that's another important thing. And once you have some automation set up in place for emails or for things going on, then you can start doing top of funnel. You can start going onto podcasts and reaching out to people. You can start creating content from there. Very, very simple formats. It could be anything from day-to-day life. If you're into other hobbies besides multifamily, put that out there. If you can't find any deals, but you're underwriting, just show that. You know, you're underwriting deals. This is why we didn't go with this deal, or this is why we don't like this deal. You know, people want to see that information too, because they won't know that you're working on deals if you don't show that. So just stuff like that. I guess that would your social media and posting out content, I guess you could consider would be, you know, your third priority in a sense. But the main thing is definitely the websites and email setup, because there's a study done, and I wish I could quote where it came from and where I read it, but people will forget who you are and why you're different inside of 2 to 3 weeks. So you should really try to understand and grasp, if you capture somebody's information, then you need to have a touch point every 2 or 3 weeks or so. So that could be an email, that could be a phone call, that could be a piece of social media content, something along those lines where you keep the relationship going with them.
And so basically, really top of funnel is kind of third priority. So you need to have your website, email setup, and like all the funnel automations before that, right? Because otherwise there's nowhere for those leads to go to. There's just, you're going to be constantly wasting your time, like doing outreach and like the whole like content at the top of funnel, but it's not going to land anywhere ultimately. So right. So do you want to, so in your profile, Nick, you have,
I think Nelson has a question there.
Okay, go ahead. Nelson.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, and of course, Stefan, always thank you for having these great guests here. Three quick questions. The first one is on the website, right? If I'm looking at having performance numbers, okay, to put performance numbers there, I want to get your thoughts on that. You know, because it's always like the proof is in the pudding, right? You know, how are you doing? I mean, to have that, your thoughts on that?
Okay, I would say, what do you mean by performance? I guess if you're talking about maybe like assets under management, deals done, or returns that you've given, or things like that.
Yes.
Okay, then I would say that that's not the worst thing to advertise. I would try to keep it as simple as you can. And then if people want to go further, I would put that either one inside of an email. Here's a case study on our latest deal. We got, you know, and then blah, blah, you put all of your returns inside of there. Because I would say there are things that you've done in the past, especially when you go down to specifics, that's a personal item that people should earn. And they'll feel like it's earned as somebody that's inside of your list or inside your connections. If you give it to them off the bat, then they'll read it and they'll start to compare you to somebody else already, is how I see it in the beginning. So maybe you're advertising and you're getting a 15 to 17% IRR, which is great, you know, for somebody. And then they're going to start looking at somebody else and compare it to that kind of data, which isn't the worst thing. But I think that the best thing to advertise as far as performance goes with your ability is you're talking about your years of experience inside of real estate, that maybe the current assets that you own, showing pictures where they are and how big they are, and those types of items on a larger scale, so people get a broad grasp. Because honestly, whenever somebody goes to your website, they're only going to remember 20 to 25% of the actual information that they absorb, and that's just for the first time. So whatever you want to be important for them to grasp from you, I would think about that. And the performance isn't the worst thing. I would just put it like as the second item that people see. So they go to your website directly, they see the top tabs, they see a direct benefit maybe or something, and why you're different at the bottom. And then they keep scrolling and they start seeing performance basis. And then they, you know, keep going down that, you know, tell a story from top to bottom, and they'll really connect with you.
So it would be something along the lines of, hey, Mr. Jones, you know, hey, Stefan, you know, this is what we do. You know, this is how we work with investors. These are our benefits. You know, have a couple of properties, and then click here to get performance data. And then the same day or next day, an email shows up, and you know, it kind of tells a little bit of the story of it. And year to date, we are bam, cash on cash return is bam. We've outperformed, bam.
Yep. I would say exactly like that. And you can even say, whenever you're on your website, you know, download here or look here, and then you'll grab people's information if they want to have that case study, or inside the email, you go through details like that, and because you don't want them to kind of go back and download your data again, because that would be for something more complicated. And I would say just one thing on top of that is that the more that you can tell visually, the more that people will like understand it and will look through it. So I've had people that will have a case study or talk about information about their deals, and they'll just write paragraph after paragraph of solid information. But maybe you have to be more experienced and advanced to understand the full material, because maybe you'll start going through, you'll talk about preferred returns and your waterfall structure and why they've done all this and this and this. And sometimes you'll start to lose people from that, but you really want them to grasp. Yeah. So the more you can visually show like, oh, we got 77% cost seg depreciation in this deal, and show a big item and break it down or something like that.
So on that same line, do you recommend, instead of having the 2 or 3 paragraphs, which I love to read and love to get into it, maybe instead of or in addition to have like those little videos where people can, like you click it and it's kind of like stick, they look like stick figures, where it shows the waterfall, there's like a little story and it's got like
anything anything that you can tell visually is always better than text, for one. Second thing is that make it align with your brand. So if you're somebody that's kind of funny or you like stuff like that, then absolutely do something like that and show and visually tell your performance through that. And then the last thing that I was going to say too is that if you do have a decent amount of text, break it up in 2 to 3 sentences max, because people will absorb that much better. If y'all don't know that already, the less that you can show people in there makes them kind of subconsciously think that it's not that much to read, and they'll read all of it. That's one thing too, and bold everything that's important.
Okay. But along those lines, I'm writing a book, launching a book out. So I'm doing a little pre-selling right here. Called Investing in America. Any recommendations on that, the website, so forth?
Yeah, I think the one recommendation that comes up that I've seen people have great success in is that, I don't know how long your book is or what you said it was about, but I've had people that will use a lead magnet. They'll give out the first chapter of the book, so let's say, I don't know, how long is your book?
It'll be
over
about
50.
Yeah, over 50 pages. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so full length book, then that's great. So then I would say that, especially if you're pre-selling, that hey, maybe you haven't bought the book yet for pre-sale, but if you want to, put in your email and contact information, and I'll give you the first chapter. And then now you either they didn't buy the book or you have their information when it is available, and then you send it out to them. So that's probably the first thing that I'd say.
And then kind of thank you for that. And then for my last question, well, we're in the short-term rental space, Airbnb, vacation rentals. Any recommendations for that website, which is a little bit different?
Off the top of my head, I don't think so. Besides compare and contrast, always works out well. So whoever your target market is, let's say that your target market is single family owners, maybe people that own a lot of single family rentals. And I don't know if you're doing a rental arbitrage or you're buying the single family to do Airbnb on your own. But let's say your clientele is somebody who owns single family, small mom and pop people, and you want to Airbnb their homes for an arbitrage type of situation. Then I would make sure that your website is tailored around that direct audience. Just like I was saying, show them the benefit and your performance and why they need to have it or they have to have it. Because let's say your big metric is that somebody who has a single family rental is that they're constantly worrying about turnover and they're not making cash flow and XYZ. And then tell them all the reasons why you solve all those problems and make them more money on top of that. That would kind of be the thing that I think about, but a little bit out of my expertise.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I'm working with folks from Latin America. I'm raising capital from overseas, hence the book, Investing in America, podcast Investing in America. But okay.
Yeah, I
So,
have about, just a little bit more time. I'd love to answer any more questions.
no, sounds good. Yeah, we're pretty much running out of time soon. Well, actually, what would you say is that, since we discussed about some of the details about the marketing side of writing a book, but what would you say broadly is the main return on effort of that? Is it to kind of build your personal brand? Since I feel like for most real estate guys, they're not going to sell that many copies, right? It's not like driving leads in that way. It's more like establish yourself as the ultimate expert within that niche, like X or X niche or whatever.
I think as are in other things, there's ways to go about it. If you're trying to write a book to sell books, then that's different. But if you're trying to write a book to gain credibility and use that, or if you're trying to build something that's max 10 pages to use as a lead magnet, there's different answers to all of those. So I can't tell as an author or if you enjoy writing or anything along those lines, but a 10-page ebook on X topic is completely worth the time, because you'll gain so much credibility and you'll have so much content that you can utilize. You'll start putting out thoughts. You'll start understanding that type of writing scenario. You can use the ebook even for certain emails of automations that you want to put into play. But for larger books, let's say, you're talking about 50 to 100 pages. I can't really talk about the money making side of that aspect, but as far as credibility goes, it is a huge jump in credibility. And I do think that it'll always be worth the time in there. And every single person in the multifamily industry, I think I can confidently say, if they wrote a book under 100 pages, I bought it and I've read it. Just because, you could have somebody that puts out credibility and puts out their understanding. If you're really trying to absorb as much as possible in multifamily, then you'll buy these books and you'll understand these sense, and it'll give you something to talk about. You'll go on a podcast because you made this book, or you'll go on to maybe even a higher level scenario. You'll go outside of multifamily into somebody with a bigger audience, and you have something to show that you wrote an entire book on something, and you try to capture a new audience from a new area. So, there's a lot of things that you can say about it, but I don't think it's never not worth the time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's a great answer. And a short SEO question. How many people in the real estate industry you think know what is domain authority? I don't.
Do they know?
You worked as a consulting. You did consulting in that initially, right? You mentioned, and so
yeah.
Do they know what it is? Do they really know?
They know the benefit. I don't think they know exactly how it works and how things are utilized through that way. But I think people can understand that type of where the benefit comes into play.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a quick question, just kind of right behind the SEO question. For Nick, and I know this is not your strength, but maybe you can point in the right direction. One of the things that we're doing is, we book through Airbnb, and we're also looking through other platforms, but we end up getting kind of like this double booking. And in the military, we would call that deconfliction, right? Where two people are shooting at the same target. Any recommendations on being able to do that deconfliction? And I think Stefan's laughing. He's like, Nelson's going to war here.
Well, I can 100% shoot up ideas as I'm thinking about it, because I'm very big on automations and using tools. And two tools I recommend if you don't use a lot of automations, and this can go for anybody too: Zapier, obvious one. And then there's also IFTT, if that's ever heard of. It's called If This Then That. And it's almost like Zapier on steroids, where you can connect with more things and you can use APIs much better than Zapier does. And you can connect things that normally would not be connected. I would look into that for one. And then the second thing I would say is, I don't know much about Airbnb and VRBO and how those things connect to calendars, but I would put in automations in place that Airbnb would book inside of a calendar. And let's say that they book for a certain day, and then you make sure that whenever somebody books, if it's on the same day, then there would be an automation in place that says that they can't do that, or that it'll automatically be placed. Or just because I'm thinking, and I love brainstorming too, by the way. Let's say Airbnb, inside of both your descriptions, you show, you can book whenever you want, how much you want, but there's going to be a 24-hour period of confirmation. So then that'll give you, as the business owner, a day to make sure that there's no double booking or something like that, just in case, or just have some type of line item that things will be canceled in place, just to cover you before you can figure out the issue or figure out that kind of issue. But definitely automations will be your friend, and VAs are very cheap as well, that you can also look into and make sure that your calendars are never double booked, and you can reach out to their tenant base, maybe even provide a discount for something that is double booked and move them to another day. I don't know, something like that.
Okay, what was that? You said D-base? Term, it sounded like D-base or something like that.
I don't know. I mean, the two tools that I talked about were Zapier and then If This Then That.
Right, which IFTT.
Yeah.
So IFTT is kind of, Nick, a much more flexible version, sounds like, of Zapier, right? You would connect things that are not like normally. Like Zapier is more like usual connectivity of stuff, I feel. Right. And yeah, that's great. That's a great suggestion. Okay.
Well, thank you.
I have a question.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
So
Chris.
thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for organizing another
Just
wonderful
one.
session.
Is it okay, Nick? So just one last question. I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, one last question.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so my question is, how do you go about branding yourself as a syndicator while also promoting the partnership in the group that you're affiliated with? Is it one and the same, or do you do them distinctly in silos?
Well, there's two ways to go about it, and you have to pick. So do you want yourself to be the business, or do you want there to be a business and you're a part of it? That's how I talk with people, and how I give the explanation is that there's the Best Ever brand, the Best Ever Real Estate, and there's Ashcroft Capital. And so Joe Fairless, is tied to both senses, but Ashcroft Capital is its own brand, and it doesn't need Joe Fairless to run, kind of thing, or is associated inside of it. Somebody can invest inside of Ashcroft and they don't have to know who Joe Fairless is or who it is. But let's say that you create or your company brand is, Chris Real Estate or something like that. Then everything that you kind of post surrounding it is inside of you and your business and your brand and your thing.
Right.
Does that answer your question at all?
It does. It's perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. So I would double down on your personality and authenticity if that's the route you go down. Just throw that out.
Makes sense. So Nick, that was like a lot of really great value here today. So what is the best way for people to reach to you?
Best way, you can shoot me an email. nicklovemultifamily@gmail is what I use for talking with a lot of connections and stuff. So that'll be the best place to reach out to me. Same thing on social media. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for being here today, sharing your time with us and all those great insights. And thanks to everyone for joining us here. Have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you.